My people, listen well. Be careful, be very careful. Sometimes jealousy wears a smile, sometimes it hides behind kindness. When a man's envy grows in silence, it can twist love into something dark, something deadly. This story is about jealousy, the kind that eats from the inside, the kind that makes a husband cross the line no one should ever cross. Watch closely and learn. Not all love is safe when greed and envy take hold. The sound of the Meccano generator humming in the backyard was the heartbeat of Lekki Phase 1 estate. Steady, expensive, and indifferent. Inside apartment 4B, Chidi sat at the mahogany dining table, the soft glow of his iPhone 16 Pro Max illuminating the dark circles under his eyes. On the screen wasn't a work email or a sports betting app, but a PDF of his bank statement. The numbers were red, bleeding out like an open wound. Chidi wasn't a poor man by Nigerian standards. He drove a clean 2022 Range Rover Velar and wore starch-stiffened senatorial suits. But the clean car was on a payment plan he'd defaulted on 3 months ago, and the suits were a facade for a man drowning in a bad crypto-leveraged bet and a botched real estate deal in Epe. Across from him, his wife Ifeinwa was on a call. She was the real money in the house, the daughter of a late textile mogul, a woman whose inheritance sat in fixed deposit accounts and blue-chip stocks he couldn't touch without her signature. "Yes, Mommy, the shipment from Turkey is arriving Tuesday," Ifeinwa said into her phone, laughing. "Chidi is fine, he's just working late as usual. You know how these developers are." Chidi didn't look up. He felt a cold, sharp resentment. He needed 50 million naira to clear his immediate debts before the boys from the microfinance firm turned his life into a social media scandal, or worse. Ifeinwa had refused him. "Invest in your own sweat, Chidi. I won't watch you throw my father's legacy into another sure thing," she had said. He had stopped arguing weeks ago. That was the mistake most men made. They shouted. Chidi became the perfect husband instead. He brought flowers. He stopped coming home late. And he spent his afternoons in a quiet pharmacy in Shomolu, talking to a man who knew how to dispose of pests without making a scene. The substance was ethylene glycol, industrial grade. It was odorless, colorless, and sweet tasting. In a country where sudden malaria or heart failure took people every day, a gradual decline would look like a tragic health crisis, not a homicide. The humidity that Saturday evening was thick enough to swallow breath. The AC in the bedroom was humming, fighting the Lagos heat. Chidi stood in the kitchen, his hands steady. He was preparing her nightly ritual, a glass of warm lemon water and honey. "Chidi, darling, is the water ready?" Ifeinwa called out from the bedroom. She was propped up on the pillows, scrolling through Instagram, a picture of modern Nigerian contentment. "Coming, babe." Chidi replied. His voice was a smooth pebble. He used a plastic dropper. 3 milliliters. He had researched the dosage. Too much would cause immediate vomiting. Too little would just make her nauseous. He needed the sweet spot, the dose that would cause metabolic acidosis over 48 hours, mimicking a severe kidney infection or a sudden internal collapse. He stirred the glass. The honey masked any lingering sweetness from the chemical. He walked into the bedroom and handed it to her. "You are too good to me," she said, smiling. She took a long sip. Chidi felt a sudden, violent thud in his chest. For a second, he wanted to knock the glass out of her hand. But then he remembered the grainy CCTV footage the debt collectors had sent him of his car being tracked. He remembered the humiliation of his empty accounts. "Anything for you," he whispered. He watched her finish it. He watched her throat move as she swallowed. Then he took the glass, rinsed it thoroughly in the kitchen with boiling water, and hid the dropper inside a hollowed-out power bank in his briefcase. By 2 a.m., the morning started. "Chidi, my stomach," Ifeinwa gasped. She was drenched in sweat.
It's probably the pepper soup we had at the club yesterday. Let me get you some Gaviscon. By 6 a.m., she was vomiting violently. Her breathing was shallow. Chidi waited. He waited until she was barely conscious, her eyes rolling back, before he picked up his phone to call her brother Obina. Obina, please come to the house. Ifeinwa is... I don't know. She's not breathing well. He didn't call an ambulance first. He called the family. In Nigeria, the family was the first responder, the first witness, and if things went wrong, the first jury. The funeral was a grand, hollow affair. Ifeinwa had died 48 hours after that first glass. The doctors at the private hospital in Victoria Island had been puzzled, but Chidi had played the role of the distraught, protective husband. She has a history of sensitive kidneys. Chidi had lied to the young resident, his voice breaking. She was taking some herbal supplements for fertility. I told her to stop. The doctor, overwhelmed by the influx of weekend emergencies and Chidi's prestigious status, had listed the cause of death as acute renal failure pending further investigation. But in the rush of Nigerian grief, investigations were expensive and disrespectful to the dead. Now, 2 weeks later, the apartment was filled with the scent of expensive incense and the heavy presence of the Igbo Burial Committee. Chidi, you have to eat, Obina said, placing a hand on his shoulder. I can't, Obina. Everywhere I look, I see her, Chidi said, staring at a framed photo of Ifeinwa on the mantel. It wasn't a lie. He did see her. When the generator flickered, he saw her shadow in the hallway. When the wind whistled through the balcony door, he heard her voice. It wasn't a ghost. It was the lack of sleep and the crushing weight of the silence. The silence of the house was louder than the Lagos traffic. The doctor mentioned herbal supplements, Obina said casually, leaning against the dining table, the same table where Chidi had checked his debts. I checked her room. Ifeinwa hates herbs. She wouldn't even drink green tea unless it was from a branded bag. Where did she keep these supplements, Chidi? Chidi's heart did a slow, heavy roll in his chest. I think she threw the bottles away when she started feeling sick. Or maybe she got them from that woman at the church. Which woman? I don't remember the name, Obina. My wife is dead, and you're asking me about bottles. Chidi's voice rose, a calculated burst of grieving anger. I'm just trying to understand, Chidi. My sister was 34. She ran marathons. People don't just drop dead of kidney failure in 2 days. The downfall of a man like Chidi rarely comes from the cinematic police raid. It comes from the mundane. A week after the funeral, the estate's facility manager, a man named Monday, knocked on the door. Oga, good afternoon, Monday said, shifting his weight. I come bring the light bill, and to tell you the plumber found something blocking the central sewage pipe for your line. Chidi felt a prickle of heat behind his ears. So, fix it. We fix am, Oga, but I say make I show you. It was a small plastic thing and some glass bottles. Someone flushed them and a trap for the bend. Monday held out a small transparent plastic dropper and a small amber vial. Chidi felt the world tilt. It's trash, Monday. Throw it away, Chidi said, his voice trembling. Actually, a voice came from behind the door. Obina stepped out from the kitchen, holding a glass of water. He had been staying in the guest room to support Chidi. Obina took the vial from Monday. He looked at the label. It was gone, but the residue remained. He looked at Chidi, and for the first time, Chidi saw the predator in the brother's eyes. You know, Chidi, I did a bit of reading. There's a very specific chemical used in some of these newer air conditioning coolants and brake fluids. It tastes sweet, it kills the kidneys, and the best part, it stays in the hair and the tissue for weeks if they do a proper toxicology report. Obina, what are you implying? I'm not implying anything, but I did notice your Range Rover was towed yesterday, the bank. And I noticed Ifeinwa's will, the one she signed last year, leaves everything to you, provided the death is of natural causes. Chidi lunged for the vial, but Obina was younger and faster. He pushed Chidi back, and the sound of the chair scraping against the floor echoed like a gunshot. I already spoke to the doctor, Chidi. We're requesting an exhumation. My family has money and we have influence. We will find what's in her blood. Chidi collapsed into the mahogany chair. The generator outside chose that moment to die. The hum vanished, leaving a silence so profound it felt like a physical weight. In the sudden quiet, Chidi realized the error of his ways. It wasn't the ghost of his wife that would haunt him, it was the living. The price of silence wasn't something he could pay with Ifeanyi's money. It was the sound of the police siren now turning into the estate gate, a sound that grew louder and louder until it was the only thing left in the world. He had tried to kill his way into a fortune, but he had only succeeded in building his own cage, one brick of greed at a time. As the handcuffs clicked into place, Chidi realized the most bitter truth of all. In the modern city, secrets don't stay buried. They just wait for the rain to wash away the dirt.